Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the American Scouser podcast. I'm Gally, filling in for Timuchin, who is somewhere in a Chicago suburb, freezing his little Turkish hands off and watching his daughter playing football at a higher level, I'm sure, than our boys because she had an assist within the first 15 or 20 minutes of the match with a nice through ball, which means she completed one more pass than anyone in the Liverpool final third on Saturday morning. So we'll bring him back maybe later. He may jump in, he may comment or jump on. We'll see. But as all folks, misery loves company. And well, Paul and I love to be miserable. So it's that time of the week. Time for trivia and time to bring in our friend, BJ, the self-proclaimed trivia geek.
That's what I am. I geek and I know things.
You do. Well, at least you know things. I mean, the geek part is I think that is one of those subject things, like, because in some levels it's cool to be a geek, in other levels it's not. So I don't think you can call oneself a geek nowadays. I think it's almost like it's almost become too passe. But I think in your level you can, because, well, you've been geeking for much longer than what before it was cool.
Oh, definitely. And I'm right in that intersection between geek, nerd, and dork. I got all three, which is scientifically very hard to do.
Probably needs its own podcast to define the difference between a geek, nerd, and a dork. But I do know that I have a buddy who listens to or who hosts a show called the Dork Podcast, and I find it hilarious because he always defines the difference on the podcast of that exact thing.
Yep. I'm right.
And
isn't the cross section of all three of those just Star Wars?
Pretty much.
I hate Star Wars since Disney got
Okay, I don't know the rules on these things. It made sense to me.
How we break the show. But one other thing we always do, even before we get to trivia, he was a minute or two late. He must already be missing Timuchin. Greetings from Houston, as always, comes in from our good friend Alan Walnut. Alan, thank you, my friend. Good to see you. All right, BJ, let's get to ruining my day.
Let's get it on. So here we go. The title of this one, a kick in the, and for those listeners not seeing the video, there's a pair of peanuts there. So that's what it felt like watching Mo's kick go, as the Harry Doyle, the baseball broadcaster, said, just a bit outside. That was really painful. Got me thinking about penalty kicks. So, stupid thing will advance. There we go. Premier League matches while Klopp's been the manager. We've had 5 different players have taken penalty kicks. Name them.
Paul, do you want to do this together and go like one after another, and then
sure, you go first, I'll go second. Yeah,
you know, so I'll go with the first and most obvious because, well, we saw him kick one into the stands on Saturday morning. I'll start with the most recent, Mo Salah.
Okay.
I'll go with Mr. Reliable, who had just been on the pitch. Everybody thought was the first PK taker and should have taken it, and I will go with James Milner.
Yep, those are the 2 most frequent. Who else?
So I know this one. I mean, if I'm wrong on this, actually I can't be, because I know he's taken a penalty, and I know that it had to have been under Klopp because he signed him. That would be the always questionable, currently form, Fabinho.
Yep, Fabinho was right. Ignore the buzzer. Fabinho is one of them. 2 more.
I'm going to go with the other Brazilian. I'll go with Bobby.
Bobby Firmino, correct.
That was going to be the tough one for me. I do remember he took one, right? Because he took one the day, someone gave it to him so he could have his hat trick.
This one's going to be the challenge.
It will be the challenge. I'm fairly confident that this one is incorrect, but I am going to say it. I know Cosgrove put up Benteke in the chat, and maybe he is right. But I'm going to, like usual, not go with the help, because why would you do that? I'm going to say Sturridge.
Sturridge did take a kick, but unfortunately it was in an FA Cup match.
This says league?
We're talking Premier League.
I remembered that one. He took that. I remember him taking that kick. Because again, I think, wasn't it he was going for a hat trick and they gave it to him and then he missed?
It also eliminates Origi and Mane, who also took kicks, but not in Premier League matches.
Yeah, my guess would have been Sadio Mane, so I would have gotten it wrong too.
So are we just going to go with our listener here and act like we used the phone a friend?
We'll go with the phone a friend, which is Kazi.
I think that's a very wise idea because that is, in fact, who it was. Salah, Milner, Fabinho, and Benteke. He only took one.
I bet you Benteke was out of breath after that.
Yeah.
I'm going to definitely giving Kazi the adding to the pod tonight. Sometimes his comments take us down a rabbit hole or change the discussion of the pod, but very often he does have he is the phone a friend when we need it during trivia. So appreciate you jumping in, Kazi. Proud of myself. I remember the Sturridge one. I for some reason felt like it was in the league, but I do remember that. And it was from David. It was a last minute winner versus Palace, he thinks, for Benteke. And
I think it was.
You get these a lot more than I do. So, BJ, as always,
we're not done.
We're supposed to be done after we get 4/5 of something right, my friend. That's how we're supposed to end this. You are like a root canal.
How many attempts have there been between those 5? Ballpark? How many attempts have there been? 280.
How many matches?
284.
I'm going to say like 23.
Paul?
Yeah, I was more in like the 35 range.
Well, it is 40.
Look at Kazi go.
Yep.
I guess it's David Cosgrove trivia night.
It's his show. He gets the award. And we scored 36 of the 40. And note, Fabinho, Firmino, Benteke, 100%. Millie only missed one.
36 of the 40, and they were all perfect except for, obviously, Mo and Milner.
Right. And
I remember Milner's miss. He hit the post.
Yep.
He hit the post out of Anfield in the first half of a match. I know Mo missed twice. Obviously, he missed this one, and he missed the last one he took before it, I'm pretty sure, against Leicester City. He might not have missed the last one, but he missed the one against Leicester because then he didn't follow it up with the header. But I don't remember his first miss. Paul, you remember the first miss?
He went like 10 or 11.
Dude, I'm lucky to remember what happened last week. I don't know how you guys remember specific matches like that with PKs. It's wild to me.
Well, obviously, BJ, we appreciate you bringing it on. We appreciate you bringing one that we actually could come up with 4/5 of the answers to. For the listeners out there, I told BJ earlier that I had massive dental work this morning, and if I'm slurring my words at all, it's actually not because I'm drunk. It's because I'm sober for once on this goddamn pod.
It helps.
But I actually had a big-ass tooth ripped out, had a screw installed for an implant right into my upper jaw, and it wasn't exactly how they planned it. So it's going to be a long couple days of rest and recovery here. So, and on top of that,
it's still less painful than watching the match on this last.
Yeah, that was basically a root canal, except for I didn't get to use FSA money, and no one gave me any time back or paid me back for the time that I spent there, where I was actually paid for sitting in the doctor's chair this morning. On Saturday, I was not only not making money, falling behind at work, I was getting angry and, well, probably creating new 4-letter words, and I'm not sure that the dog is actually ready for that type of energy at 7:30 in the morning. But he'll get used to it because I got a feeling we got a few more of those matches to come between here and the end of the year. But all right, BJ, thank you very much. Have a great week. We'll see you on Monday.
Take care.
BJ's segment is brought to you by I Wish We Didn't Have That, and I Don't Give a Bleep, as it is every single week. But we genuinely appreciate you being here. So, as always, please get involved with the program. Chime in, comment. We'll bring them up on the screen. There's just 2 of us tonight, so we have no third man in. So we could use all the extra comments and areas to take this conversation because, well, you know, I'd like to not commit suicide by the end of this hour. So let's start with the lineup that comes out Saturday morning. It's 6:30 here in Western Massachusetts. I see this lineup, and it's basically what I expected, to be honest. Might have liked to seen a little bit of rotation. Paul, any surprises here? Anything you would have liked to have seen the gaffer do different?
I think I would have liked to see Bobby start here. That's probably the difference. But I mean, I don't know where him or Jota are on fitness. So I mean, I'll trust the gaff here. But yeah, I probably would have liked to seen Bobby start in this spot. Other than that, I don't really have a problem with this lineup. I think this is probably the freshest set of legs available.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the lineup, especially coming off of 4 or 5 clean sheets in a row in the league. I felt it was important to keep some consistency at the back. Though I thought Tsimikas looked good in his appearance earlier, what it was against Palace or whenever he played last, I thought he actually played really well. And he shows that he actually offers something a little different than Robertson going forward, which is kind of exciting because I think at this point, really, it's Robertson giving us the width and adding to the attack going forward. It's not really Trent. We're almost asking Trent to hang back more, which, again, we'll talk about Trent. I feel like almost puts him into a place of not confusion, but where he almost starts fighting with himself. Do I stay within the tactics? Do I go forward and play to my skill sets? And I think sometimes, a guy like Trent who's off form and maybe at times in his career has been a little too overconfident or things have come so easy to him. I think these are moments of a career that are very difficult to pull out of. And I think we see it in him getting lost literally on the pitch at times. And I felt like there were a few of those moments in the first half where even though they weren't getting at him, I felt like he was weakening the defense with his positioning and his overall defensive awareness again.
I mean, yeah, that's just been a consistent theme, right? I mean, I think there's a combination of issues here, right? I think Timuchin always says, and I think this is the really scary thing, is that this team seems to go as far as Henderson does in the midfield. And I think that's the real, I mean, when we look at the heart of this thing, I just wonder how affected Trent is by the fact that we just don't have the legs in the midfield to tuck in behind anymore. We just don't. And we talked about this at length on other pods. I think that he's so far in his own head at this point. I think we've seen moments of brilliance from him, but he just doesn't seem to have the confidence. He doesn't seem to have his tail up. And I mean, I think there were problems all over the place in this one. I mean, I thought you could look at Darwin and Konate as our future, right? And I thought both of those dudes were uncharacteristically sloppy from the get. And I think that was a scary thing. I mean, because we talk about the fact that this team has been ridden to death, right? Well, this lineup, 60% of it's 24 years or younger. So, and we're out of every single competition. So, you can't tell me we didn't come into this competition somewhat rested off the back of, as good a win as you could possibly have for morale. So, it's really, really concerning to see this team come out and perform that way. I mean, it was a team that just looked like they never woke up getting off the bus.
Yeah, and I do want to get to Konate and Nunez because I thought Nunez was really, really poor, especially in the first half. I mean, he was god-awful. If he gets yanked at half, there's absolutely nothing he could have said. I thought he was a little better in the second half. I was about to go, I think, where Kazi was going with his comments. I thought for the first 15 or 20 minutes, too, they were really good. But I do feel like this question, the second question, why are we so bad when there's the slightest bit of adversity? And I do really feel like that's the scary part. And I think the idea that we were that bad coming off such a big win with being able, we were the first match of the weekend. So we had the opportunity to put pressure on everyone in the table around us, including maybe the weakest and softest Spurs side that, the softest Antonio Conte side that's ever been put together, right? A player thinks they can actually take runs at Antonio Conte in the media. The wheels are falling off Antonio Conte's bus. So I just felt like this was a real opportunity. And I've made this comment before on the pod. I never liked the look of Virgil when he's wearing the armband. To me, he looks like he tries to do too much, leading everybody. And I think this also comes back to maybe part of the reason I don't love what the side looks like when Virgil's wearing the armband is it means that Milner nor Henderson are on the pitch. So we miss the leadership and we miss kind of the guile in the midfield, especially Henderson's pace of keeping the ball moving. To Muchin's point, I thought Van Dijk was scarily poor in this match, and not just from making mistakes. I thought Konate was rash and made errors in judgment. He went for tackles he shouldn't. He pressed high up when he shouldn't. He was allowing players to spin behind him, right? As soon as you realize how fast that kid is, everybody has to at least have it in their mindset. And to me, that's normally when Virgil is calm and patient. And in this match, he didn't look calm and patient. In this match, he looked slow and lethargic. He looked like a guy who honestly didn't care that much. He completely quit when he got his feet messed up on the goal. He doesn't track back, as bad as it is that Konate plays, the player on side or Robertson, whoever it was, just as poorly as Van Dijk's response to it. And then he just walks to the touchline and he's yelling at people once again as they're taking the ball out of the back of the net. And to me, that's not calm as you like. We can sing the song when it works. We got to point kind of the finger when it looks like the blame. And he has not looked good for me for a few matches now. And it was eerily scary to see the drop off in this match against a side that belongs in the championship.
I think that's the problem with Virg, though. I mean, if you remember, like, peak Virgil, it was like he was Cool Hand Luke, right? And so, like, when he's not performing at that level, all of a sudden that looks like apathy. And that's the problem, I think, is like when we were crushing it and Virg just got that sort of presence, he looks like a Rolls Royce. But, like, when everything is sort of in tatters and he still looks that way, like nothing bothers him, then, like, that's an issue. And, like, that's the crazy thing about this team. Like, this goal goes in under 30 minutes and heads drop like this has gone in on the 90th. And I don't understand in a match of this magnitude, right? I mean, and this is nothing against Bournemouth, who's playing their best football right now. I mean, they took Arsenal right down to the wire. They're playing good football right now. But the fact of the matter is like, this team should have known how important, how massive this game was off the back of the last match. With the table sitting the way it is, and really us being 3 points away from being back legitimately in the conversation. And to go out and not only lay an egg, but, like, just have the body language of a loser. Like, that was a losing mentality. Like, you go down 1-0 under 30 minutes, and then they like never looked like a team that thought they were ever going to score. They just didn't. Like, I mean, we had moments in the second half, but it's just really, really difficult to watch this side, who we used to call mentality monsters, just look like mentality weaklings right now.
So we get to half, right? We get to the half. Klopp does the unthinkable, right? He makes a substitution, putting on Jota at the half, pulls off Elliott. Were you surprised it was Elliott that he went to first, and either not Bajcetic or even one of the front three, like a Darwin, and just kind of kept in the shape, especially coming off of how well Elliott had played against United the week prior?
So I wasn't surprised. Is it what I would have done? No. I just think what he looked at his options and thought, well, I've got to have two people that can win the ball in the midfield. So I can't take off Fabinho and I can't take off Baj. So, like, that leaves your options limited. I think he's looking at Darwin as probably lightning in a bottle. Like, he's been shite, but he can also pull something out of nothing. And he's one of the few players that's done it for us this season. You're not taking off Mull in that spot. So I think you're down to sort of Harvey, who, for all intents and purposes, that entire midfield was pretty much crap the entire first half. So I think he probably thought, like, just by process of elimination, that's the best one.
So as we progress forward, obviously the next round of subs, he does the triple substitution. He brings on Henderson and Milner, and was it Bobby? I think he brings on 3 at once, and he goes to Bobby, Milner, and Henderson, taking off the 2 midfielders who started, which was a little shock to me. I thought it would be Bajcetic, if anything, and Nunez. I didn't think he would. I didn't think he would take off Fabinho there, but he did. Leaves Bajcetic on the pitch, maybe sending a statement. And, of course, the big one, he takes off Trent, down a goal just after 60 minutes. Is that a statement about Trent's play, or do you genuinely believe that Jurgen Klopp thought Milner gave us a better chance to not only score, but to see out the match with a win?
I don't think it was a statement. I don't think, like, from what I've seen from Jurgen Klopp, I think he will make substitutions if he feels like a player continuing to play is going to critically hurt that player or the team. I don't think he makes like statement substitutions. I do think he genuinely thought that having Milner, essentially what he was going to do was have Milner play a more traditional back four in that system and then push his attacking options forward. And so I think in that scenario, from a tactical standpoint, it does make sense to have Milner come in. And he's probably just looking at, I have to get all the pieces that are on the bench that I think can put something together on the pitch. And then I've got to pull people off. And that was probably the one that made the most sense. It's very similar to how Harvey went. So I didn't have a problem with that. I don't think it's a statement of Trent. I think if we were going to have a Trent not playing as a statement, it would have happened ages ago.
David Cosgrove says, thought Milner was great. His cross for the pen is brilliant. And I actually agree with him. I thought Milner was very, very good. I personally thought Milner might get the start in the match. Like, I think we're coming to a point where Milner starts starting some matches at right back. Because to David's point, I think the underlying numbers recently is that James Milner's actual like chances created per minutes played at right back over the last like 2 months they dwarf Trent's. Trent's really not creating opportunities for us to score goals. And he's not even really getting into those spots. And if you then create defensive liabilities or you're making other players worried about having to cover for him, I think then it does weaken an entire side of the pitch. And I think we've seen that. And I think it trickles all the way down, right? We've talked about Trent has suffered because Henderson's not playing behind him or in front of him to tuck him behind him. Mo has suffered because Henderson is not consistently behind him playing like Henderson. So I can understand that. So let's go to the penalty. Obviously, they award the penalty. Before we talk about the miss, the selection, all of that, we talked about this briefly before this. Your thought process is it is a pen. VAR makes the right decision, and that's primarily because you believe that the shot is on target if the hand isn't there, in natural or not.
Right. I do. I don't think it's a natural position. I do think that it's not I think if it's any other part of the pitch, it's probably not called, and you could probably make an argument for that. But the fact of the matter is that if his hand's not there, that ball goes in, and I think they had to, at that point, they have to award the pen.
So, other than the fact that my TV was clearly on delay, and therefore Megan's expletive all the way from Seattle, Washington, at about 5 a.m. in the morning, let me know that this was not going to be good before he even kicked it. When you saw it live, could you believe how, not that he missed, but that he actually missed it that poorly?
I mean, nothing surprises me. I feel like I've had this pit in my stomach since the Fulham match, right? When everyone's thought this was going to be just a one-off. But yeah, no, he missed it horribly. It's probably still coming down somewhere on the South Coast. But yeah, it was wild.
I mean, the fact that the keeper actually left before he kicked the ball. he literally could have just side-footed it and rolled it straight down the middle. The guy was already diving before he had actually struck the ball. And I understand, you're running up to it. At all surprised, I know he had the big sit-down interview with Steven Gerrard this past week where penalties came up. That he was actually asked if he was on penalties. He was asked what his mindset's like, and Mo actually said he hates taking them. Like he doesn't like taking penalties. Does that sentiment surprise you? Because I know I know after Harry Kane kicked the ball in the World Cup that, English supporters will be thinking about for a long time. The first thing he said is like, I can't wait until I win another penalty because I need to get back up and just drill one and get back on it. Are you worried at all about the hangover here from a guy outwardly telling someone I don't like to take penalties and then kicking one into Rose Zed?
It's an odd one, and I don't know how to react to that because honestly, I've never even had this discussion, which is kind of weird because I've been around football my whole life, but I've never really had a discussion with a striker or somebody who regularly takes pens. I can tell you in my playing days, I took them in shootouts. I was not the primary taker for any of the teams that I played on. I didn't like them. I loved winning them. I didn't like taking them. I was serviceable at them, but I was never one of the best. But I just never really cared for them. And it's interesting because I'd love to I wish there was a truth serum that you could just basically panel and ask 25 primary PK takers how they feel about them. It's interesting because I feel like if you're the primary PK taker, you're probably fairly good at them and you like scoring goals. So you probably do enjoy it. So it's an odd thing. If someone was to ask me, I would tell them that I didn't particularly care for him, but I wasn't the primary kicker, right? So for a primary taker to say that it is definitely, I feel like that's pretty unusual, especially considering how people don't realize how hyper competitive Mo is. I would venture to say he's probably the most competitive person on that team outside of Hendo and Milner. He's been very public about the fact that he's chasing goal records at this club, and a lot of players will stay away from that. So it's an interesting comment in general.
Alan says, I honestly felt he meant to miss it. And I would have loved to, I guess, understand that one there. What exactly was he meaning to miss? Did he miss it, Alan, because he felt it really wasn't a penalty? Because I don't believe that was the case. Is the dude giving the double birds to supporters alike who traveled all the way to the South Coast in a snowstorm? We bring up all the comments here that we can that make any sense whatsoever. I got to be honest. Maybe I should have done that because I don't know that this one makes any sense. But
yeah, I can't imagine that.
Kazi said, would love the manager to explain that. Why is a lad who doesn't like taking them doing it when you have two lads on the pitch who should be above him, and those lads being Milner and Fabinho. And if he doesn't like it, he should just pass it on. I don't know that I would, I would love to hear him say, I don't want them, because I feel like there was a conversation a couple years ago where he went to Milner because he wanted the penalties because he felt like he was not winning golden boots and falling behind on other players and goal records, etc., because he wasn't taking the penalties. So it'd be interesting to me to see, what some of his splits are. At the same time, I am with Kazi. If he genuinely does not want to be taking penalties, and Fabinho or Milner, who are very comfortable with it, are on the pitch and would like to take them, I'm all for it. I also believe that Gakpo has a very good penalty record for both Netherlands and PSV before he came here. So, if there's an option there, maybe down the road. I will say this. I saw Darwin take 2 for Benfica and 1 for Liverpool in the Community Shield, and I could never see Darwin take another penalty again because he almost looks like he's going to run full speed up to the ball, and then he stops without a slow run-up, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, Darwin makes me nervous. I also think sometimes guys who play with that much high energy aren't able to get their body down to a calming place that you need to take a penalty. But it is interesting. And I think all eyes will be on this side the next time they get a penalty awarded to them, especially if it's in a big spot.
I don't know. He's putting him in at like an over a 90% clip. I mean, and he's been doing it for years. So I think he grabbed the ball, he took the spot. I can't believe that he's ever had a conversation with Jurgen Klopp about not wanting to take him and being on pens. I don't believe that for a minute. I think that probably came up in an interview, and that was probably a surprise to Klopp as well. I don't think he's made that public. I don't agree with having Milner step up with his first kick of the match being on there, because then we're all talking about how it was Milner's first kick of the match. It's like it is Chris Rock's selective outrage. We're only talking about it because he missed it.
Yeah, and that is true, and I do completely understand the overreaction portion to it. I mean, I did joke in Discord, if that would have been Milner's first touch of the match, that might have been Mo's fourth, but it was the 70th minute. So, part of that is that the guy did look like he was kind of drifting in and out of the match throughout the entire thing. So of all days, it was not one where Mo Salah looked like he had his confidence shooting boots on, because if he did, he would have scored once or twice before that point.
And his reaction, man, it brought out the smile police. So we're dealing with that all week as well.
Well, that's a whole nother one, right? Was he happy? Yeah. Was he sad? Does he like to be at Liverpool? So we're going to go to the Champions League matches midweek here, and we will get to the Real Madrid-Liverpool match, but, we have a little extra time today. We thought we would touch on some of the other matches that are happening. So you got the big two tomorrow, starting, of course, 4 p.m. Eastern time, with Porto hosting Inter, up a goal. And then the big one, we'll save that for a moment, City versus Leipzig at the Etihad Stadium, with all 14 fans probably facing the other direction and booing the UEFA anthem, even though it's the tournament that the owners want to win. These supporters really have to figure their shit out at City, right? They're going to hate the league when they get docked points and they get found for breaching league rules, but they really hate the Champions League, even though the Champions League gave them a slap on the wrist because they want them in their competition. Really, supporters, figure your shit out. But Inter and Porto, if we had a chance to move on, I'd be heavily rooting for Porto, because when Porto's in a draw, Liverpool gets them. But seeing the fact that I see the quarterfinal draw is not having us in it, what are your thoughts on Inter versus Porto tomorrow, and can Porto turn that around?
I mean, sure they can. It's a 1-goal aggregate. I think Inter is probably too strong personally. I don't see Inter. I can't see any other result than Inter going through. So I think they're probably the heavy favorites there. They've been playing some decent football. But yeah, I think Inter is probably a little bit too strong here. I'm with you. I'd be pulling for Porto too if we didn't need 1,000 Hail Marys and a miracle.
Yeah, I said the same thing, I will say, last year when Porto was going up against Juventus at Juventus down a goal, and I thought they had no shot. And then I think they not only came back and won the match, I think they did it with 10 men, which was even crazier, which is classic. This shit can't happen, and then it happens. I think in this case, Porto's best chance is to, nick a goal 1-0, try to force it into penalties. I do think Inter is a superior side, playing a little bit better. And I think the fact that they don't have to put too much eggs into the Serie A basket, with Napoli already having the Scudetto won at this point, I think they can focus on this and really try to make a run here. And I think they have to like this matchup. I think they go there tomorrow looking to kill it in the first half, try to score an early goal. And if they can get Lautaro Martinez or Lukaku on one early, then I think they're in a prime position. And I think they're one of the scary, quiet teams that could go on a run here. And do something fun in this Champions League, because surprisingly, there isn't really a die-in-the-wool favorite at this point. But if we talk about the favorite and the betting favorite, it is the other team that hosts a match tomorrow, which is Manchester City, the favorite to win the Champions League at this point, through all the different betting sources across Europe. Were you shocked that Leipzig was able to not score the Gvardiol goal that they got off the header, but were you a little shocked that they were able to withstand the City attack and hold City to only one goal? Because Leipzig hasn't had a great job this year from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah, I was surprised that they just kind of bullied City, to be quite honest. I thought they were the more physical of the two teams, which I just did not see coming. And honestly, I know they haven't had a great year, but I could see them pulling this off. I really could, because I don't think City's playing well right now. I mean, and I don't think they've played particularly well for 3-4 weeks now. I mean, they're getting some results, but I just don't they look bereft of ideas at times. They're doing this thing where there's not really a nucleus for a starting 11 that seems like it's gelling. It's Foden's had moments, Silva's had moments, even though he's playing in more of a recessed position. Grealish has started to come on at times. And then obviously Holland's went off to the scorching start and it was just scoring at a record pace and is still putting them in. But I just think that at times, like, it seems like they're almost trying to force play through him. And I think that is to their detriment.
What do you make of the fact that Guardiola has sat Kevin De Bruyne, a healthy Kevin De Bruyne, 2 of the last 5 Manchester City matches? So
we've all, as Liverpool supporters, talked about what a dream it would be to see De Bruyne in our midfield, knowing that he's a Liverpool supporter or fan since he was a kid, and thinking that he would be just sort of like the creme de la creme in our mid. And I still think that, but I think something that has gone sort of overlooked with KDB throughout his career is that he is an extremely temperamental player that has issues everywhere he goes. Mm-hmm. He is known as somebody who self-isolates, who has oftentimes been cold to teammates. And I think that, we always joke about how miserable he looks at Cities because he's got to deal with Kyle Walker and bullshit like that, right? Well, we can joke about that, but to some extent, I think that KDB can be a problem for a team. Yeah. In terms of if they – go ahead.
No,
you're good.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I actually agree with you. And not only do I agree with you, I think as Liverpool supporters, we love poking fun at Bruno Fernandes, right? But the difference is Bruno Fernandes is an absolute, asshole. He looks like a dink. He whines, he cries, he rolls around on the pitch, right? But to a man, Portuguese teammates, Sporting teammates, United teammates, everybody defends him and everybody loves him. You never hear anyone defending Kevin De Bruyne for throwing his arms up at players. You never hear a manager come to the podium and talk about him. Even Roberto Martinez would kind of throw shade at him on the Belgian side, saying, we not only need our best players to be our best players, but to also be the best leaders. And I think Pep, and if one thing we know is Pep will fall out with a player no matter how talented they are, and he will just find a reason why the side is better without them. And part of it is that he's got $500 million worth of players behind him, and it's easy to mask that. But I do think De Bruyne is in a tough spot. I have the sneaky suspicion that City will come good tomorrow and play really well, and that Leipzig will be set up on the counter and use their pace. But because of that, will maybe give too much possession to City, and they'll be at home. And if Haaland gets one early, I could see it getting away from them. But I'll say this. The longer that thing is level 1-1, God forbid Leipzig go up 2-1 in this thing. This will be Olympique Lyon all over again. And this will be their greatest failure if they don't get out of this tie. Because the Champions League has never been set up so well for them to win. Madrid are Madrid, but they're down. Liverpool is all but out. The other sides, I mean, there's, AC Milan is playing poorly, can't score goals. Bayern doesn't even look like Bayern. PSG's out. I mean, the stars are aligned. If City were going to win it, it might be this year. And really, they should go do it. In my opinion, I hope the other team playing tomorrow or on Wednesday, I hope Napoli just keeps this amazing run on. anyone who has not watched them play yet, you have to watch this team play. They have the best striker under 25 in the entire world in Asaman. They have the best. I'm not even trying to pronounce the on the left wing.
The Georgian
kid's amazing. The Georgian kid's amazing. The Osman kid's amazing. Both of them will be in the Premier League within 2 seasons too, which is scary. One could be at Arsenal and the other could end up at United, which nobody wants to see either of. I'd really love us to get in there, but the last thing we're going to do is go spend money on a left-sided attacker. So I don't see it being a Liverpool move for either of those players. But I would love a team like Napoli. I could take Inter Milan going on a run. Obviously, I don't want Chelsea or City to go any further in this thing. But it's really interesting. It's going to be and make for a really interesting later stages.
I think this is Napoli's to lose. If I'm perfectly honest, I think it's Napoli's to lose. I think top to bottom, floor to ceiling, from start to end of this season, they've been the best side that I've seen consistently. They're just absolutely running through everybody in Serie A. And internationally, they've been just as dominant. I mean, they've got that talented front three. They've got a midfield with Zielinski and some teeth in it, and they've got a back four that are consolidated. I think that they're going to be a really, really tough out. To me, they're the team to beat.
That's crazy to say that, right? And it's crazy to think that the team to beat in the Champions League is an Italian side and it's not Juventus. And I will say we all love poking fun. I had to look at the tables today to be prepared for this conversation. We all love poking fun at Juventus. And they're 4 points outside of still qualifying for Europe, even though they had a 21-point ban. It's unbelievable. So quickly, we have to talk about it. It's in the name of the podcast. So Liverpool, Real Madrid, Wednesday, 4:00, trailing 5-2 on aggregate. We all know we had the 2 quick goals, and the wheels came off. Is there any hope? And what would the approach be if you were the manager, not Jurgen Klopp, if you were the manager going to Madrid on Wednesday?
I would put out a side that has seen as many winning magical moments in this tournament that I had. I'd put Milner out there. I'd put Hendo out there. I'd try to see if I could get some minutes out of Bobby. I'd put Verge out there. I'd put all the big guns out there. I'd put a strong lineup. I would try to keep this thing as loose as possible before the match. I don't see any reason to go. I think the fact that you're down 3 goals, you have to turn into a positive somehow. And that positive is that you shouldn't have any fucking nerves. Right. You know what I mean? That's the positive. And I would go out there and let's see if we can make some magic happen one last time, fellas. That would be my message. It's and I would probably just show nothing but tapes of us coming back versus Dortmund, us coming back, Istanbul, us coming back versus Barcelona. I would be showing all the big moments, and I'd be showing the big moments with these guys in this side because they seem like they have forgotten who they are. That's probably what I do, and hope for the best.
Yeah, I saw one writer talk about this would be the match he would start with 4 attackers and 2 midfielders and just go for it and just be like, I'm coming at you. Sure. I'm going to play Bobby in the 10 and literally play him up top with Gakpo, maybe play Nunez on the left, play Mo on the right. You're going to have to ask a lot. And you might be right. Then, maybe it is. It would be old man Milner and Henderson, or either Fabinho and Henderson in the mids together. And just kind of roll.
If you go down a goal and it doesn't happen, you can swap it out and put the kids in.
Well, that to me, there's 2 schools of thought. You either go and try to score in the first 5 minutes of the match, hope to get a second by the half, and now it's whoa, it's 5-4. They're not really going to do this, are they? Because it will creep some doubt in. The problem is they're not weak-minded Barcelona. They're Real Madrid, and Modric will still score in the 89th minute to break your heart, even if you were to come back and make it 3-0. It's just how it'll go, in my opinion. I do think you go at them, but I think the other school of thought is this a match to give people experience and to make not a statement to Klopp's point, but is this where you get Carvalho 45 to 60 minutes of play because he's not going to get much run in the Premier League the rest of the way? Do you give Tsimikas maybe a Champions League start? Do you put a player in the shop window and hope he has a turn the clock back moment and someone in Europe pays too much for Matip or pays more over the moon for another player? It's an interesting idea, and the only thought process around it is we do need these guys to have legs. The only thing is they don't have to play a match for 21 days in the Premier League. So
and I'm
a long time
for Jurgen to just completely troll the shit out of me and play a 4-2-3-1.
It would be hilarious to start Bobby. I almost feel like Bobby has to start for the plain fact that it's literally his last chance to get a start in the Champions League at a big club like Real Madrid. And if anything, I think Bobby Firmino has deserved the right to kind of have a moment, whether that be, and we know we'll have a couple more between now and the end of the season. So what better way to segue into a topic, something we love on this podcast and we've loved from our comments. And obviously he's made his 250th appearance for the club, league appearance for the club. What a legend. I think if you had polled many supporters in 17, 18, there's no way they would have believed he would have reached the heights that he has, just because there was so much pressure put on him when he came from Hoffenheim and we had the surprise signing. I'd argue it's probably the best signing. I don't even think it's it is the best signing of the Brendan Rodgers era. I think it was probably right up there with Sturridge, right? Those two players are probably the two most important players signed by Liverpool while Brendan Rodgers was here. So I ask you, Paul, if you thought of your favorite, and it could be a couple, goals, moments, any ones that come like immediately to mind when you think of Bobby Firmino, other than them big ass teeth that convinced Klopp to go invest some money at the dentist around the corner.
There's so many with him, man. And the great thing is, like, looking back, somebody posted on YouTube all 100 and some of his goals or whatever. And then I was watching some other videos through my fucking tears. And I swear, like, the videos that show his assists are just as amazing as his goal videos, if not more. And
they're
like
some of mine.
I don't know how you find that. You don't just typically see that with a striker, right? I think the moment that's I think there's a couple. I think the one where, he's off the back of the eye injury. He dribbles through the entire PSG back line and then puts it in and does the eye patch celebration. That to me was iconic. I love a good goal celebration. That's why I was like 3 months longer on the Barini train than most, just purely on the goal celebration. Yes, the knife. I wanted the knife to stay, man. Like, I wanted that to work out. Anyway, I think – so the thing that's special about Bobby to me, obviously, is because I think he redefined the way to play that false nine position. And the way that he did it was so incredibly unique in terms of the fact that he had the Brazilian flair and almost like the soul of Samba football, but he had the heart of like the Docks, right? He had like a blue collar motor in him that you just don't typically see in a Brazilian player. And I thought, for me, the goal versus City probably personified that more than any goal. The one where he comes in and basically just shoulders John Stones off the ball on a 50-50, just basically shoulders him off it, squeezes past him, and then puts it in far corner. And he's a big – I think it was a goal that was just out of being tougher than somebody, stronger than somebody, and just being grittier than somebody. And I think in that moment, it was such a big goal, and he's just a big-time player in a big-time matches. And I think that he, I feel like I didn't have enough of him. Like, I keep thinking, like, I didn't have enough Bobby, right? But then I see him setting up assists for, like, Sturridge and Coutinho, and I'm like, dang, he's been here for fucking ever. Like,
well, and I think that's what I realized watching those same videos, because we probably went down the same YouTube hole. Yeah. Because they got these ones in the top 25 goals plus 25 assists, and you do realize, like, all the different iterations, right? The Bobby before the teeth, the Bobby with the small top knot because
the
top knot Bobby. And I know I get criticized here on this podcast. Tamuchin loves to poke fun, like I hated Bobby because I was willing to question whether or not this was coming to an end last year. Not as much that I wanted it to happen. I wore number 11 all my life. I was bummed out when he gave up number 11 because I wanted my favorite player at Liverpool to always wear number 11. Dirk Kuyt was my favorite player before Bobby. I love the number. Maybe it's the 14-year-old frame. It looks good with two skinny little ones in the middle of it. But I've always loved the number. I love the player. I was so excited when they signed him from Hoffenheim. Now, granted, I thought we were signing the number 10 player that I had been clamoring for forever and then never proceeded to actually play him in the role. For me, I think you could find so many goals. The PSG winner in stoppage time, it's a Champions League. You come on in stoppage time and break their hearts. That's an amazing moment. And with the eye celebration, when he dribbles through the entire world against Arsenal and literally puts three guys down and then just slots the keeper, just side foots it and laughs at him as he runs away. That for me is pure Bobby because it was everything great about Bobby. There was no high flying moment. Anyone could bring up the Stoke volley because it's an amazing goal. But that's not Bobby Firmino. That's just him showing he's a world-class talent. But to me, the goal, after watching all those videos, that still blows my freaking mind is the left-footed swiveling volley off the chest, off the ground against Swansea. So this is second year, I think. He basically is in the middle. Sturridge is out left. They're at the cop end. He flicks. Sturridge just lofts one up. Bobby literally goes chest in full spin, takes it to the ground. As it hits the ground, he hits one of those volleys right with his left foot and puts it into the upper, top left corner. Keeper has no chance. It was everything that the touch, the movement, the body position, everything that Suarez had, that all these great goal scorers have, that Bobby Firmino never gets talked about having. Because for every one of those touches, there were 5 or 6 different touches that set up other players being in for easy goals. The little tap over to lay off to Harvey earlier this year, where Harvey bends the one in. The one where he does the basically the Cruyff turn and spins it back to Mo, and Mo puts it top corner. It's literally the stuff that you can't make up. And I'll say, of all the people that I got to see play when I was there last year in that final match against Wolves, there was nothing better than seeing Bobby Firmino play in that match, because you not only saw the player, I saw firsthand the joy that comes through on TV. And then to be in that stadium, right behind where your right shoulder is, and to be able to listen to them sing the song to him, and see him at the end of the match doing the victory lap with his daughters and his wife on the pitch, it embodied everything that is good about this club. And, I'm actually sad he's leaving, but I'm happy it's going out this way, because I would have been really, really unhappy, man, if they told me this in June and I didn't get to savor every single last moment. He deserves an Origi-like moment on the last home day, and he's going to get it. And it's sad that he's going to go, but I'm happy he's doing it on his terms. And now it sounds like it's literally like Barcelona, Juventus, Inter Milan, AC Milan. He goes to Italy, man. The game is going to slow down, and he is just going to score goals on goals. And I hope he does go to another good-sized club and gets an opportunity to still be a part of something great, instead of just getting $350,000 a week to play in the Middle East. And by the way, if he takes the $350,000 a week in the Middle East, I do not begrudge him. But I hope it ends better than that for Bobby.
When was the last time that a player as loved as Bobby voluntarily left the club and did it in a way where he was universally loved the way that he is. Like, he's just a special spirit. Like, when you talk about his comment to Klopp where he said, like, this has been a beautiful story and I'm looking forward to having a happy ending, and having another event. Like, just the way that he frames that, so fucking beautiful. Like, it's like, and I don't know, in a weird way, like, I almost felt like he was trying to give people closure. Like, you know what I mean? It's almost like he developed this, like, he really thought about this, came to a decision. And then the way that it wasn't this like, nope, it's time for me to go. I'm going to go do, like, he really thoughtfully framed this for people who I'd like to think have invested as much time and emotional energy into this club as he has. Like, and I think that that's like super important. Like, I think that he's just a beautiful fucking spirit. And I think the way that he framed that about this being a journey and that this has been the best years of his life. And he has the self-awareness to understand that his game is where it's at right now and that his body is where it's at right now. And like his best opportunity to end this chapter and to end this sort of story of his career is to go do it in another environment. And I think like just the way he sets that up, I just thought was so emotionally intelligent, but if you've watched him, you can't be surprised by that because that's just who he is. And I think that this team, as much as this team relied on his sort of unconventional rewriting of the false nine role and how much that meant tactically to this side, I think his spirit has meant as much to this club as anything else. And so when I say profound loss, like I will grieve Bobby like I've grieved the lowest of lows in my life. And I think that he's going to be a massive, massive hole in this club. That's going to take a lot to fill.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I think when you hear the other players and teammates talk about him, and it's not just here, the Brazilian teammates, his Brazilian international teammates have talked glowingly about him, though he's never held a big role under any of the major international managers because he didn't play his youth football in Brazil, and they're just idiots, and they can't see that you can learn a game in Germany just as well as you can learn it in Brazil, even though he might epitomize how Brazil wants to play football more than any Brazilian forward they've had for years, yet never wanted to utilize him. But his teammates would always talk about him in such high regard. I know Virgil van Dijk recently was asked who the best Liverpool teammate he's had, and he was like, well, that depends. Are you asking who the best teammate is? Like the best person, the best player, or the one with the most skills, or who can do the most? He's like, it doesn't really matter. It's all Bobby Firmino. Yeah. And I think that's what it comes down to is he barely ever learned the language, yet he became Scouse. And, I don't like speaking that way, but I know the people I met when I was there, meeting David Cosgrove and hearing how Cosy has talked about these Liverpool players and the ones who really make it in the community. I also look at even some of his negative moments, like the way he handled being arrested for drink and driving and not hiding around it and not it was an embarrassment. It was a blight on the club, but he stood right up and answered all the questions, said, I won't let these mistakes happen again. I have a family and I need to worry about the people I could hurt. And I would argue it would take a long time for me to think of something that didn't make me happy about Bobby, but it would take even longer for me to think of something where in any way he let me down. And some of my favorite heroes of this club and players I've loved have let me down at times, including guys like Steven Gerrard and clearly, Luis Suarez and people that I enjoyed watching, but it was difficult at times to root for and or support. And I can't imagine those emotions ever coming over around Bobby. So, it'll be sad when he leaves. It will be great. And, we'll get out of here on this. David Cosgrove says, I think of the Holgate push and the aftermath of that must have put him in a real awkward position. And I remember that too, because I remember saying, this kid's going crazy. Why is he going crazy? And, again, to the credit, there were a couple of Everton players coming out and being like, I didn't hear anything said out there on the pitch. And I feel like that's where like the rivalry almost eclipses itself, because they were like, we're not going to let one of the good guys get painted a racist because you were mad that you got pushed into the boards and, you know, got spoken down to a little bit. But we're going to get out of here on this prediction for Wednesday. What is the final score of the aggregate as we head back from Madrid?
I'll go 7-4.
So I was gonna say 6-4, but that's ultimately saying that we get a 2-1 win at the Bernabeu, and that is a very, very tough one there. Kazi says 3-0. Genuinely think we go through. Man, that would be the most Liverpool thing of all time. I'm going to say we come up just short, and I am going to say it ends up just being like 6-3. You know, we end up with like a 1-1 draw, and that second goal, that last goal I think was really the killer. So we're out on this. We will be back. As always, please go to our YouTube page. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We really need the clicks and the follows. Give us a like. If you'd like to get involved, feel free to send us a message. We're always looking for new volunteers, whether that be on the TV side, production side, want to write an article, or maybe just help us with some social media posts. We're always looking to expand the team. And, of course, if you missed Timuchin, go ahead and tune in on Wednesday morning, 10 a.m., He'll be back for the morning coffee show. It'll be a little bit of a pre-match for the Madrid match. He'll go a little deeper into that, maybe give you his thoughts, and maybe he can give you some of his favorite Bobby moments at that point, because God knows he's got a few. All right, from myself and Bickler, it's been a lot of fun. Bickler, safe travels tomorrow on board in the flight, and we will be back, same bat channel, same bat time, next Monday. And we will not have a Premier League match to review. So at least we know we won't lose any matches in England, folks. Have a great week.